The galaxy had long feared the Zakiri, known as the most ruthless and deadly species in the universe. Their reputation was enough to send even the bravest races into hiding. Their ships were massive, equipped with weapons capable of obliterating entire planets. Their strategies were flawless, their strength unmatched. They had conquered countless worlds, leaving behind nothing but ruins and silence. Nothing could stand against them. But now, as the Zakiri approached Earth's last known colony, something felt different. Something wasn't right. For centuries, Earth had been isolated from the galaxy, exiled by a council that believed humanity was weak and defenseless. It was thought that Earth had no allies, no weapons, and no chance of survival in a galaxy filled with powerful civilizations. But rumors had begun to spread. Whispers of a hidden force on Earth, a force capable of challenging even the most feared species in the galaxy. The Zakiri had been sent on a simple mission: find and eliminate any remaining humans, extinguishing them from the galaxy forever. Their plan was straightforward: enter Earth's orbit, destroy everything in their path, end the human threat once and for all. Their massive warships glided through the cold vacuum of space, their weapons primed and ready. The Zakiri commanders were confident. They had faced countless enemies before, but none had ever posed a real challenge. Earth's reputation was that of a forgotten world, weak, isolated, and unimportant. It was a target that posed no real risk. As the Zakiri ships drew closer to Earth, something unexpected happened. A signal, strange and unfamiliar, rippled through the vast emptiness of space. It was weak at first, a mere flicker of energy, but it grew stronger with each passing second. The Zakiri fleet halted, puzzled. What could this be? The signal didn't match any known species communication patterns. It wasn't a distress call, nor was it an invitation for peace. No, this was something different. The signal was unmistakably human. But the message that followed was even more baffling. It wasn't a plea for mercy or help. It wasn't a desperate cry from a weak, helpless people. It was a declaration. The humans were not only alive, they were waiting. They had prepared for this moment. The Zakiri had expected an easy victory, one they could boast about to the rest of the galaxy. But now, they hesitated. For the first time in their history, they weren't sure what they were walking into. Was this a trap? Or had humanity, in all its weakness, managed to harness something more powerful than anyone had ever imagined? The fleet's leader, Admiral Kraft, a towering figure with cold, calculating eyes, ordered the ships to stop. The silence that followed was tense, broken only by the faint hum of the warship's engines. Kraft's mind raced. The Zakiri had never feared anyone. They had wiped out entire civilizations with ease. But this felt different. "Prepare for combat," Kraft finally said, though his voice carried a hint of uncertainty. "We will not underestimate them." The Zakiri had learned many lessons in their ruthless conquests, and one of those lessons was never to underestimate an enemy. But the truth was, they had no idea what to expect from Earth. The humans had always been viewed as primitive in their technology, their culture, and their defenses. But now, this signal hinted at something far more dangerous. Could it be true? Could the humans really have developed a weapon or a defense capable of challenging the Zakiri? The Zakiri commanders quickly analyzed the signal, trying to find any hidden meaning within it. But no answers came. Earth's defenses were outdated. There was no question about that. The Zakiri had the latest technology, the most advanced weapons, and the most skilled warriors in the galaxy. Yet there was something in the air now that made even the most experienced Zakiri commanders uneasy. It was as if the humans had been waiting for this moment for centuries. The truth, however, was far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Humanity had indeed been waiting. They had been waiting in silence, biding their time. While the rest of the galaxy believed Earth had been a forgotten, useless world, humanity had been preparing. They had found something ancient and powerful that could turn the tide in their favor. It wasn't just about technology. It wasn't just about weapons or ships. It was something much deeper. Humanity's strength didn't lie in the size of their ships or the power of their weapons. It lay in their will, their ingenuity, and their unwavering determination. They were survivors, always adapting, always finding a way. And when the Zakiri arrived, they would realize just how wrong they had been about Earth. As the Zakiri fleet continued to hover over Earth's orbit, the first of their scouts prepared to land. They were expecting resistance, of course, but what they didn't expect was the force that would rise up to meet them. The signal had been a warning, but it had also been a promise. The humans were ready, and the Zakiri were about to find out that humanity was not the weak, helpless species they had been led to believe. The Zakiri were in for a fight they had never anticipated. The silence of deep space was broken, and the galaxy's most feared species had just encountered their worst nightmare. The Zakiri fleet hovered in Earth's orbit, their warships casting long shadows over the planet's surface. They had expected to face a weak and defeated species, but now they were uncertain. The humans had sent a message, and with it, a threat that no one had foreseen. As the Zakiri prepared to land, their sensors began to pick up strange readings. Something was happening below them, something they couldn't quite understand. A sudden flash of light erupts from Earth's surface, blinding the Zakiri fleet for a moment. The Zakiri commander, Admiral Krath, stands frozen, staring at the flickering images of Earth's cities. The humans were not as defenseless as they had assumed. But what was this power, and where had it come from? Plot highlights. The Zakiri warships begin their descent toward Earth, expecting to encounter some form of human resistance, though they remain confident that they will crush whatever comes their way. As they near Earth, the Zakiri pick up strange energy readings. The planet is alive with activity. Old structures, long forgotten by the galaxy, begin to pulse with energy. The first wave of Zakiri soldiers descends upon Earth's surface. What they find is not a ragtag group of survivors, but a carefully orchestrated and organized defense. The humans do not fight with weapons alone. They fight with tactics, and for the first time in their lives, the Zakiri begin to question their assumptions about humanity. ***, the Zakiri's descent into Earth's atmosphere was swift, almost too easy. The fleet had come prepared for the worst. Cities reduced to rubble, ancient artifacts scattered among the remnants of a once proud civilization. Instead, as their warships cut through the atmosphere, they encountered something strange. Activity, strange signals, and energy patterns pulsed from Earth's surface. Admiral Krath watched as the image of Earth grew larger on the holographic display. He had fought countless battles, seen entire civilizations fall before his might. But something about this felt different. Something was changing. A moment later, his thoughts were interrupted by the flash of energy. It came from the surface, lighting up the night sky like an explosion. The energy blast was so intense that it blinded the fleet's sensors for a few seconds, but when they returned to normal, the Earth had revealed something truly unexpected. Tunnels beneath the Earth's surface, long hidden from the galactic eye, were now active. Massive machines that had been dormant for centuries began to move, emitting strange bursts of energy. Even the most advanced Zakiri technology struggled to interpret what they were seeing. The old myths about Earth being a place of powerful, lost technologies were now starting to seem far more real than Krath had expected. The first wave of Zakiri soldiers, anticipating nothing more than a scattered, poorly equipped resistance, prepared to land. As they disembarked, Krath observed their progress from the flagship, feeling confident that his warriors would easily sweep through whatever human forces remained. But as the Zakiri troops advanced into Earth's abandoned cities, they quickly encountered an unexpected defense. Instead of the weak and helpless humans they were used to encountering, the Zakiri soldiers faced a highly organized defense, traps, hidden weapons, and combat tactics that the Zakiri had never seen before. Human ingenuity was on full display. What the Zakiri didn't realize was that humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment. While they had been exiled, forgotten by the galaxy, humans had been evolving and adapting in ways no one expected. They had been planning for the Zakiri's return long before the alien species had set foot on their world. Human forces, though outnumbered and outgunned, fought with precision and an almost unnatural resolve. The Zakiri were surprised to find themselves challenged at every corner, their superior weaponry neutralized by tactics they had never encountered. They had assumed humanity was weak, just another species doomed to extinction. But now, as their troops struggled to advance, the Zakiri were beginning to realize they had underestimated the human spirit. Admiral Kraft clenched his fists, his mind racing. What had been a simple conquest was rapidly turning into a nightmare. The human's resolve was stronger than he had ever imagined, and this primitive species was showing no signs of surrender. A Zakiri scout returned to report on the unexpected resistance. "Commander," the scout said, his voice filled with disbelief, "the humans are using the terrain against us. They've rigged the cities with traps, and their soldiers are more organized than we anticipated." The words hit Kraft like a blow to the chest. How could this be? The humans were supposed to be nothing, insignificant, a fading memory. Yet now, they were holding their own. They had prepared, they had adapted, and worse still, they were not fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. Back in Earth's command center, hidden beneath layers of old and forgotten buildings, the human leaders watched the Zakiri advance. Their screens showed the movements of the enemy forces, but they showed something else too, a glimmer of hope. The signal had been sent, the warning had been given. Humanity's best and brightest minds had developed their strategy for the Zakiri's return. But this fight was just the beginning. As the first Zakiri forces began to retreat, stunned by the intensity of human resistance, the galaxy's most feared species realized they were facing an enemy they had never anticipated. The humans were not only alive, they were fighting back with a strength and intelligence that the Zakiri could not comprehend. The battle had only just begun, and the Zakiri were already beginning to understand the price of their arrogance. The Zakiri fleet, once filled with confidence, now finds itself unsure of its next move. Their initial victory seems far from certain as human forces begin to regroup. On Earth's surface, humans are no longer hiding in fear. They have launched their own counterattack, using the Zakiri's own tactics against them. Shockwaves ripple across the battlefield. Humanity has never felt more united or more determined. The Zakiri had expected to crush the last remnants of humankind without resistance. What they didn't expect was the intelligence and creativity humanity would use to turn the tide of the battle. The very machines that were supposed to subdue Earth's defenses have become instruments of destruction in human hands. Plot highlights. The Zakiri fleet struggles to adapt to the human strategies. Their once advanced technology is being neutralized by human ingenuity. Humanity's counterattack is relentless. Humans are using their knowledge of the terrain, old military strategies, and even basic tools to create weapons that surprise the Zakiri. The Zakiri, faced with a force they cannot control, begin to panic. Their leader, Admiral Kraft, is forced to reassess the situation and consider retreat, but it's too late. The humans' counterattack is in full swing. As the battle rages on, human resistance movements around the world unite under one common goal: to drive the Zakiri out. The once divided Earth has found a new unity in the face of its greatest threat. The Zakiri were not prepared for this. Their warships, once dominating the skies above Earth, now found themselves besieged by an unexpected force. Earth's human resistance had exploded in intensity, with guerrilla fighters emerging from every corner of the planet. From the shattered cities to the underground bunkers, humans had organized like never before. Admiral Kraft stood on the bridge of his flagship, eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The battlefield below was chaotic. His fleet, known for its ruthless efficiency, was being picked apart by humans who had no right to be this effective. How were they doing this? What were they using against his warships? Human ingenuity. It was the one weapon the Zakiri hadn't accounted for. Human forces had begun to use old tactics that had been forgotten by the galaxy. They'd rigged the terrain with traps, mines, explosive charges, and even old military hardware that hadn't seen the light of day in centuries. What was supposed to be an easy assault had become a nightmare. The Zakiri's powerful war machines were now being slowed, their advanced weapons countered by the humans' creativity. The Zakiri had expected human weapons to be crude, ineffective, but they were wrong. As the battle raged, human fighters began to deploy weapons that were far from outdated. They had adapted quickly, making use of the few resources left on their planet to create technology that could stand up to the Zakiri's might. A small group of human resistance fighters, using nothing more than old vehicles and homemade explosives, had taken down an entire Zakiri battalion in a daring ambush. The Zakiri soldiers, trained to fight the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, had been caught off guard. They couldn't understand how humans, with their outdated technology, could inflict such damage. At the same time, another wave of human fighters, working together in tightly coordinated squads, had begun to target the Zakiri warships in orbit. Using small, stealthy craft, they'd managed to breach the Zakiri's defense systems, planting explosive charges on the hull of one of the larger ships. As the charge detonated, the Zakiri flagship was crippled, forcing Krath to call for an emergency retreat. But it was already too late. The human resistance was everywhere. From the jungles to the cities, from the mountains to the oceans, humanity was fighting back with a ferocity and ingenuity that no one had expected. Earth, once thought to be a dying world, had become a battlefield where the galaxy's most feared species now feared for their survival. The Zakiri were out of their depth, their technology useless against an enemy that refused to surrender. Admiral Krath clenched his fists in frustration. How had it come to this? The Zakiri had always been unstoppable. They had conquered countless worlds, wiped out entire species with ease. But now they were losing to the very humans they had once written off as insignificant. On the ground, human leaders from all corners of the world had united. Resistance movements, once fragmented and disjointed, now fought together under a single banner. The survival of humanity was no longer a question of individual nations or cultures. It was a question of survival as a species. The counterattack was growing in intensity. And the Zakiri were realizing, with growing panic, that they were no longer the predators. They were the prey. Krath ordered his fleet to regroup, but every move was met with human resistance. Their tactics were unpredictable. Their technology, though inferior, was being used in ways that left the Zakiri reeling. This wasn't just a fight for Earth's survival. It was a fight for the galaxy's future. As Krath stared at the screen, a new realization began to settle in. The Zakiri had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And now, they were going to pay the price. The tide of the battle has shifted. The Zakiri fleet, once a symbol of fear and power, is in full retreat. The humans, against all odds, have driven them back. The Zakiri's once invincible warships are now damaged, and their morale is shattered. Yet, amidst the chaos, Admiral Krath knows that this fight is far from over. He refuses to believe that humans could ever truly defeat the Zakiri. But as his fleet regroups, a new threat emerges, something even the Zakiri never anticipated. A secret weapon, hidden on Earth for centuries, is about to be unleashed. The humans' most powerful weapon, one that could change the course of the war, has remained dormant until now. Plot highlights. The Zakiri fleet retreats but plans to regroup for a final assault. Their leader, Admiral Krath, is determined to reclaim control. Earth's forces, now emboldened by their success, begin to strategize for the final push. But they are unaware of the ancient weapon hidden beneath their feet, one that could give them the edge they need. The weapon, known only as the Titan, is humanity's last resort. It's an ancient, colossal machine buried deep beneath Earth's surface, hidden from all but a few. As the Zakiri regroup for their final strike, the humans prepare to activate the Titan, knowing that this could be their last chance to win. The Zakiri were not known for retreating. They were a force of nature, a species forged in the fires of conquest. But as the last remnants of their fleet limped away from Earth, Admiral Kraft couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The humans, once thought to be weak and scattered, had united in ways he never thought possible. They had managed to strike back, pushing his fleet to the brink of collapse. Kraft stood on the bridge of his flagship, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. His officers moved around him, working furiously to assess the damage. But he wasn't listening. His mind was focused on one thing: the humans. He knew they had used primitive tactics, and he knew they had relied on their terrain and old weaponry. But he also knew that Earth had always been more than what it appeared. It was a place of hidden history, full of secrets the Zakiri had never been able to uncover. And Kraft was certain that humanity had something left up its sleeve. "Admiral," a voice broke his thoughts. His tactical officer stood before him, a flicker of concern in her eyes. "The fleet is retreating. We can regroup, launch a final strike. We'll crush them." Kraft turned slowly, meeting her gaze. "I don't think it will be that simple," he said, his voice low. "The humans have something we don't understand. We've underestimated them, and it cost us." His mind was racing. He needed answers. He needed to know what the humans were hiding. He had heard rumors of a secret weapon, something humanity had kept hidden for centuries, even before their exile. But those were just stories, whispers in the dark. Was it real? Back on Earth, humanity's leaders were already preparing for the next phase of the war. They knew that the Zakiri would not stop. Their only hope now was to activate the ancient weapon, the Titan. For centuries, the Titan had remained dormant, buried beneath Earth's surface in a hidden location known only to a select few. It was a relic from an age long past, a piece of technology far more advanced than anything humanity had ever used. The weapon had been built by the ancient ancestors of humanity, long before the rise of the Zakiri. It was a last-ditch effort to protect the Earth should their enemies ever return. No one, not even the world's top military leaders, knew exactly what the Titan could do. All they knew was that it had the power to turn the tide of any battle. The leaders of the human resistance gathered in secret. The hidden chambers beneath the Earth's surface were filled with plans and strategies, and the air was thick with anticipation. "We've won the battles, but we haven't won the war," said General Callum, one of the leading figures of the resistance. His voice was calm, but filled with determination. "The Zakiri are regrouping, and we don't have time to waste. It's time to activate the Titan." With that, the order was given. The Titan would be unleashed. A small team of soldiers, engineers, and scientists began to dig deeper into the ancient facility. They had located the entrance, and as they descended into the depths, they could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. They were about to awaken something that had been dormant for millennia. The closer they got to the Titan, the more the ground trembled. It was as if the Earth itself recognized the power it held. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the heart of the facility. The Titan stood before them, a colossal machine, its size impossible to comprehend. The human team worked quickly, knowing that the Zakiri fleet would be back soon. As they activated the systems, a low hum began to reverberate through the ground. The Titan's massive form began to glow with energy. Up above, the Zakiri were unaware of what was coming. Their ships were regrouping for their final assault, but they would be met with a force they had never faced before. Humanity's last hope, the Titan, was now awake. Admiral Kraft may have underestimated the humans, but now, as the Titan came to life beneath the Earth's surface, he would soon learn the price of that mistake. The battle for the galaxy was far from over, but Earth had just unleashed its greatest weapon, and the Zakiri would never see it coming. The Zakiri fleet, once filled with pride and invincibility, is now retreating, but the war is far from over. The Titan, the ancient weapon hidden beneath Earth's surface, is fully activated, As its massive energy pulses through the ground, humanity's forces prepare for the final clash. The fate of the galaxy rests on one last battle, but the Zakiri are not ready to give up yet. They will stop at nothing to crush Earth's last hope. The final countdown begins, and the universe holds its breath. The Zakiri think they can still turn the tide, but humanity has already proven that they are far more than the galaxy ever expected. Now, the humans will show them their true power. Plot highlights. The Zakiri, realizing the magnitude of the threat, launch their final assault, bringing everything they have to bear against Earth. Humanity's forces, with the Titan now activated, prepare to stand their ground. The Titan reveals its true power, capable of warping space and creating massive shockwaves that destabilize the Zakiri fleet. As the battle rages, Admiral Krath faces his greatest challenge yet. He's forced to confront the reality that the humans may be more powerful than his species ever anticipated. The final battle is a desperate clash of might and ingenuity, where humanity's courage and determination meet the Zakiri's unmatched military power. Earth's defenders, united and focused, launch a final decisive strike with the Titan, ensuring that the Zakiri will never threaten their world again. The Zakiri had underestimated Earth from the start. What they thought would be a simple conquest had become their worst nightmare. Now, as the final battle loomed, the full force of their fleet gathered, their warships prepared for the ultimate assault. But something had changed. The humans, their forces seemingly scattered and weak, had risen in ways the Zakiri could not comprehend. Admiral Krath, standing on the bridge of his flagship, clenched his fists. The energy readings from Earth were unlike anything he had ever seen. The Titan, humanity's secret weapon, was alive. The machines beneath the surface were stirring to life, and the Zakiri, once the galaxy's most feared species, were now on the defensive. "Prepare for the final assault," Krath ordered, his voice cold and resolute. "We will crush them, once and for all." But even as he spoke, a nagging doubt began to fester in his mind. The humans were no longer the weak, exiled species they had believed them to be. They had something far more dangerous than advanced weapons. They had the will to fight, to survive. And that, Krath knew, could not be underestimated. Below the surface of Earth, the Titan hummed with energy. Its colossal form, buried for centuries, had been awakened by humanity's last hope. The secret weapon, once thought to be nothing more than a myth, was now the key to Earth's survival. Humanity's leaders, General Callum and his team, stood at the control center, watching as the energy levels spiked. The Titan was ready. They could feel the power emanating from the machine, like a heartbeat pulsing through the Earth itself. "It's time," General Callum said, his voice firm. "Launch the final strike." The Titan's massive form began to move. Its energy surged through the ground, sending shockwaves into space, destabilizing the very fabric of the Zakiri fleet. The first wave of Zakiri ships exploded into a brilliant flash of light, their shields unable to withstand the Titan's power. But Krath was not giving up. With a roar, he ordered his fleet to charge. He would not let a mere weapon defeat the Zakiri. The battle raged across the stars, as both sides threw everything they had into the fight. The Titan, now fully operational, unleashed its devastating power. Massive shockwaves ripped through space, tearing apart the Zakiri warships and sending debris scattering across the galaxy. The Zakiri had no defense against the might of the Titan. They could see, for the first time in their history, that they were losing. The humans were not just fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. As the battle reached its peak, Admiral Krath knew that the Zakiri could not win. The Titan had turned the tide. The humans, with their relentless spirit and ancient power, had proven that they were no longer a species to be underestimated. In the final moments of the battle, Krath ordered his remaining ships to retreat. There would be no victory today. The Zakiri had been defeated, not by superior firepower, but by the will and ingenuity of humanity. As the Zakiri fleet vanished into the void, Earth stood victorious. The humans had faced their greatest challenge and had emerged stronger than ever. The galaxy, once filled with whispers of humanity's weakness, now trembled at the thought of their power. The Titan powered down, its task complete. General Callum stood silently, gazing out at the stars. The battle was over, but humanity's journey had just begun. The Zecuri had met their match, and Earth had proven that it was far from finished. The universe would never forget the name of humanity.